Hello everybody, my name is Franklin and today I want to talk about why defining language immersion is so important. Again, my name is Franklin and this is First1000hours.com.
Don't give up on your language learning marathon. You can make it. You can make it through your first 1,000 hours.
All right, so we're going to go right into the presentation. Again, we're talking about why defining language immersion is so important, and I just want to go to my next slide, and it's like this. First of all, I believe that sometimes when someone is starting to learn a language, they are getting really excited, maybe like myself at one time, and you are saying things like, oh, I want to learn a new language, and then what happens is people could say something like, well, you would really learn the language if you went to a foreign country. And if you're like me, that sometimes can be out of reach. And especially when I was starting to learn Spanish, it was out of my reach. There's no way I'm going to be spending $1,000 to just go to a foreign country for a month or two because it's expensive and I needed to work. And basically, I'm still basically in that situation. It's expensive to travel. And so if travel is the only way that I can immerse myself in the language, then it's like, why am I doing this in the first place? So we're going to look at the definition that I'm going to have. You can have your own definition as well of immersion, talk about that in depth because I believe this is important for people that want to have a first 1,000-hour mindset. So let's continue in the presentation. All right, so how I define immersion is immersion to learn a language is putting oneself in a real world context for at least 1,000 hours, not a 2-week vacation in a foreign country. So we can say, yes, I got immersed because I went somewhere for 2 weeks. But when you actually look at how long it takes to learn a foreign language, it's going to take longer than 2 weeks. And that's why I like to talk about it in terms of hours. Okay, so a vacation is not going to cut it. Okay, when we're talking about immersion to learn a language. So let's continue in this. So I just want to give a scenario about 2 different types of people. All right, so I'm just going to name this person on the screen Bob. That's not his real name, but just play with me and bear with me right now. This person, let's name him Bob. He's a guy in his 30s. I like to say, by the way, I like to say a guy in his 30s because I'm 35, and it sounds better to say I'm a guy in my 30s. So I'll just shave some age off of him as well. Okay, so he only knows English. Okay, and he gets an English-speaking job in a Spanish country. And so he does that because he tries to follow the advice that other people are saying that you have to go to a foreign country to immerse yourself in the language. Okay, so just remember his name is Bob. All right, so we're going to look at person number 2. And this person is Henry. Again, that's not his real name, but just bear with me. And he's just like Bob. He's a guy in his 30s as well. And he only knows English. But what he does is he seeks to learn Spanish in his home country, the United States of America. And so Bob would be kind of more similar to me. I can relate to Bob because I'm kind of, anyway, I can relate to Bob. So let's look at this. Okay, so this is a question to really think about. In a typical day, when are Bob and Henry going to be able to learn Spanish? Okay, so if both Bob and Henry have to work, right? Because I would assume if they're in their 30s, they're not retired, they are working class adults, they're going to have to work. So that means that I'm just going to assume, I'm making some assumptions here, that both of them have 40-hour work weeks. So that means that they are spending 40 hours in an English-only environment. So the question is, again, when are they going to be able to learn Spanish? Both Bob and Henry are going to be able to learn Spanish when they're outside of their jobs. So that's when they have free time. So it's like it doesn't change because they go to another country because they're trying to learn Spanish. And if you're trying to learn Spanish, that doesn't mean you know Spanish. So you're not going to probably get a job where one of the requirements is for you to speak Spanish because you don't know Spanish, right? So both of them have to learn the language on their free time outside of work. Okay, so let's go on to the next point here. What are the advantages and disadvantages of Bob and Henry's situation? So you could say with Bob, you could say with Bob, he's surrounded by native speakers. And so, he has all of this exposure to native speakers or whatever. It is, but anyway, we're gonna look at that a little bit more. But I think one of the advantages for Bob is that when he's driving or when someone else is driving or something, he's going to see a lot of signs that are in Spanish. He's going to see, basically when he's in a grocery store or something like that, he's going to see everything, basically a lot of signs in Spanish. And he could, have more opportunities to talk to people in one sense in the grocery store that speak Spanish, because he could be able to say some small conversation, like he might say hello, how are you doing, or something like that, or go into small talk. But I want to ask you a question. When you are in a grocery store, do you have an hour-long conversation? Or when you see someone walking on the street side, do you just talk to them for an hour? So I would say that he might have opportunity to have small talk, which what I mean by small talk is maybe 1 to 3 minutes versus Henry in a grocery store or something like that. So you could say he might have, I don't know, 5 to 10 more minutes of being able to talk to random people than Henry does. Okay, so with Henry, one of his advantages is that even though he's in this country in the United States, one of the things that he has is he doesn't have to think about where he has to go to get his groceries or whatever like that. He's already in a routine. And so he doesn't have to be tripped up with trying to figure out how to learn this language to be able to do things that he normally does, like be able to pay his bills or be able to, I don't know, be able to pay his bills, be able to buy his groceries, be able to drive and all of these things. There's nothing new that he has to learn in that sense. He gets to focus more on the actual language itself and learning the language. Okay, so some of the disadvantages for Bob is that he has to pay this expensive plane ticket. He had to pay, a lot of money to go there. He has a lot of travel expenses that he has to do. And with Henry, one of the disadvantages is he doesn't have those signs. He can't see all these signs in Spanish all over the place in the United States like Henry can do. I'm sorry, like Bob can do. But one of the advantages that both Bob and Henry have, you could say, is they have the internet. So that doesn't change no matter where they go in the world. Basically, they can basically have internet access. And so when you have internet access, that means that you can be able to look at YouTube videos in your target language. You get to look at YouTube videos in Spanish. You get to be able to communicate with people in a foreign country and all of that. That doesn't change no matter where you are, basically, if you have an internet connection and a smartphone. All right, so let's continue looking at this. When do Bob and Henry get to have conversations with natives? We kind of talked about that, but I just wanted to illustrate something that I thought was pretty interesting when you're talking about conversation. I'm not talking about just maybe the conversation as small talk. I'm talking about more of those deep conversations that maybe last for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. That is an advantage. That is something that you only get when you actually get to cultivate relationships. And I just wanted to give an illustration in here in this country. I had a neighbor that was, my neighbor in the duplex that I live in, basically, and that was he was a native Spanish speaker. And I talked to him maybe for just a few minutes in Spanish, maybe like a minute or less. And the whole time that he was here right by myself. And so I had this neighbor that I was learning Spanish, seeking to learn Spanish and all this, but I didn't spend that much time with him. But even though he was right there, I took advantage of the opportunity I had to have a language partner, and I was able to talk to my language partner on WhatsApp. And I spent hours, many hours, speaking with my language partner versus maybe in Spanish versus like a minute or so that I spoke to someone that was right by me, because I had cultivated a relationship with this person, my language partner. And so no matter where I am in this world, in order for me to actually have these serious conversations, I'm going to have to take initiative, right? And I'm going to have to think about how can the other person benefit from that conversation as well. And so it's not just the availability of natives all around me that's going to be important. necessarily. It's going to be me taking initiative and seeing opportunities that might be right in front of me. And that's something that can happen to me no matter where I am in the world. Okay, so let's continue in this presentation. And this is what I've thought about many times. I know this is kind of a little bit of an exaggeration, but I really think about this. And this is a question: do you only begin to be immersed in a language when your feet touch foreign soil? I think a lot of people believe that's the case. You only are immersed when you are in foreign soil. But I mean, does this foreign soil make, that doesn't necessarily help you. What is going to help you more is a mindset of seeking to take advantage of the opportunity no matter where you are. And that's something that you can do wherever you are. Okay, so we're going to continue here. And again, you can disagree with this. That's all right. These are some reasons that some people gave to go to, of why it's good to go to a foreign country. I was asking this on Reddit because I was asking people, hey, give your strong reasons on why you believe that it's good to go to a foreign country. And I wanted to look at those and maybe present about them or talk and give you my opinion. And so one person at least said that one of the reasons why it's good to go to a foreign country is because you can have faster learning. But I would say that really, I would say a bigger factor of whether or not you're going to be able to learn a foreign language is the time that you spend with the language. And the time that you spend with the language can be increased or decreased no matter where you are. And I think sometimes we look at examples of people that went to a foreign country and they got to these high levels in the language. Oh man, I have my glasses on. I meant to take my glasses off. But anyway, let me take my glasses off. But we look at them and we're excited about them. But then the flip side we have to look at as well is if people go to these foreign countries, then why isn't it that everybody that goes to a foreign country and their foot touches a foreign country, why isn't it that some people don't learn a language? And I think a lot of it, you have to look at the initiative that people take, the time that they spend with the language, and then also, are they seeking to challenge themselves? Okay, so now let's look at another question here, or another reason. You could say you have more exposure to the language. And again, I don't necessarily believe that's the case, because you can spend hours on YouTube. You can spend a lot of time looking at native level material on YouTube. You can go to Spanish churches in the United States. You can read Spanish books. You can have conversations on WhatsApp or Hello Talk. You can do basically a lot of things where you are using the internet and being able to converse with people, as well as having real face-to-face conversations with people as well. Okay, so another reason was that you can have motivation to learn a language when you're in a foreign country. And I think that if you go to a foreign country and you are seeking to learn that, a lot of times what happens, I think, is people gravitate to going to like an English bubble and not taking advantage of the opportunity of spending that time with those natives, because there's going to be a lot of things that you have to do to actually just live and survive and function. And when you go through all of that, you might just want to just speak in your own tongue again and have some kind of space where you can do that. So you can get motivation to learn a language in your home country. You don't have to like go away from your home country to do that. I mean, but I guess to each their own. All right, so I wanted to go on here as well. Now, I believe that immersion is what you can do wherever you are. I mean, that's kind of obvious. And I have a bias. Like I said, please leave in the comments your opinion on this, and we can have a discussion and all that. I think it's good to look at different ways of thinking and all of that, so that you can have a solid language learning philosophy after you've kind of considered the options out there, and you can say, okay, immersion is not dependent on where I am. It's just a mindset. And it's also me switching the activities that I do in my day to be more having more contact with that language wherever I am. Okay, so I wanted to share this telephone story with you. This was just recent, that someone called me on the phone on Sunday, and I was on the phone with someone else, and I forgot that my phone settings are all in Spanish, at least for my telephone settings. And I realized that when I come in contact with people that are just English only speakers, and so I wanted to let the person know that I was on the phone with someone else. And so I had an option on my phone to let them know, but all of the options were in Spanish. And I was like, oh man, wow, all these options are in Spanish. And then if I was to type something in English, then I would not have enough time to do that. So the only options I could do was to send a text, click on something, and send a text in Spanish. And that's what I did. And I did that because what I have done is made Spanish a part of my life. And so I immerse myself all the time in Spanish. I remember there was another recent story where one day I was I was about to go to church, and I was going to my English church, and I forgot I was going to bring both of my Bibles. I've been reading more in my Spanish Bible, and I forgot my English Bible. And I did that because I have more so been immersing myself in Spanish, so I brought my Spanish Bible. So, again, immersion is a mindset. And so what I want to leave with you is I want you to look at this picture as well. What do you see in this picture? This kind of will relate to what we're talking about in a second. And some of you might look at this picture right here and you might say, wow, look at this. This is a couch. And maybe that's all you see in the picture, but I want to let you know that this picture right here is more than just a couch. When I look at this picture, I see a YouTube studio, and that's basically what I'm talking to you today. I'm talking to you from my YouTube studio, and I also look at this as like somewhere where I can do photography, somewhere where I can potentially do live stream consultations about different things in the future. And I just want to show you one thumbnail that I was able to do from this, sitting on this couch right here. And that's what I did. I had my computer right on the couch, and then I was able to transform that into a YouTube thumbnail. And so the question is, do you wait for an opportunity, or do you make an opportunity? And that is going to define whether or not you think that you need to wait to go to a foreign country in order to immerse yourself, or whether or not you can immerse yourself right now. And so I just want to thank you so much for looking at this, if you're looking at this live or the replay. And I also want to let you know that I'm going to put a playlist of a video called Do I Have to Travel Abroad to Learn a Foreign Language? And there also will be a video that YouTube recommends, and I hope to see you in the next video.